Good evening and welcome to Live with Faye on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to also thank you for your support over the last several days when we tracked the US election, the Bihar election, and everything that came with it. We had a steady viewership that was better than several other organizations and journalists who function on YouTube, which was nice. It's nice to have steady support, and it's nice to have people who believe in the kind of work that we do. Also, quick announcement. We've given the team the weekend off for Diwali. So tomorrow and the day after that, there won't be any shows. Today, though, we're discussing the economy. We have our experts. So quickly jot down your questions if you have any. Let me just take you through what's going on. Two big things have happened. The RBI has put out a report that's made many people frown. Now, this is called the Nowcast report. It's been authored by the RBI, and it says effectively that the GDP would have shrunk in the quarter ending September by 8.6%. So minus 8.6% in July and September. Now combine that with the previous quarter, which was April to June. Remember, we talked about the fact that it was minus 24% in that quarter. Two consecutive quarters mean a technical recession. So India has entered a technical recession for the first time ever in the first half of 2020-2021. This is what the authors have written. A technical recession for the first time ever. Now, questions to ask. What is a technical recession? Secondly, we've had government tell us repeatedly that with Diwali, things are looking better. So are they likely to look better in this quarter? Now, remember, this is the RBI estimate. The actual number will get published on the 27th of November. But if the RBI is expecting minus 8%, we'll also try and find out if the reality is likely to be close to minus 8%, is likely to be worse or slightly better. The other thing that has happened today is that the finance minister had a press conference where she announced the third tranche of rescue measures, if we may call it, a stimulus package 3.0 for those struggling because of the lockdown and COVID and the economic impact of it. It has a scheme to incentivize job creation called the Rozgar Yojana, where basically it's complicated. It says that if you're an organization that's signed up for EPFO and you go out and hire at least 3 people, if I'm not mistaken, who make less than 15,000 rupees, the government will pay both the employees and the employer's contribution of the PF of 12% each. How much of a difference is that likely to make? We'll find out. Now, other than this, there was also the extension of the credit guarantee, covering more sectors under the manufacturing performance-linked incentive scheme, additional spending under the PM Awas Yojana Urban, support for construction and infrastructure sectors, income relief for developers and home buyers, and equity infusion into national investment and infrastructure, fertilizer subsidy for farmers, and more things in that general area. There's also a grant for COVID vaccine development. We're going to find out if this is enough. So this is how I see it. The RBI note that has come out, the report that's come out, is a diagnosis of what is wrong with our economy. It's like your blood report. Now you see the problems. The finance minister's announcement should ideally be the prescription or the treatment to revive this economy. The question is the diagnosis accurate, and will the treatment actually do the job? To help me answer these questions, we have joining us right now Mr. Mohan Guruswamy, who's a senior economist, Professor Santosh Mehrotra, and K. Raghunathan, who's the convener of the Consortium of Indian Associations. So he brings in the businessman's point of view, but I want to remind our audience that he's also on the board of the EPFO. So we'll ask him questions about how much of difference will this EPFO announcement actually make. Let me start with Professor Mehrotra because I know that he's only got half an hour with us. Professor, the diagnosis and the treatment. Let's talk about the diagnosis first. At minus 8.6%, I know that you had said on this show that you expected to be that or maybe even worse. You're obviously not surprised by it. My question is, do you buy the argument that by Diwali and the Diwali festive quarter, things will look up?
We'll wait and see. It's the government itself which is saying that the economy is going to contract by about 9.5%. Now, if it contracts only in the first 2 quarters, and not in the next 2 quarters, then, I mean, then perhaps the recovery is in place. But I can't seriously believe that you will be able to offset a 24% decline in the previous quarter and something like an 8 to 9% decline in this quarter. We'll have to wait to see what the exact numbers are. No one in their right mind has been suggesting for India, and I specify for India because I want to compare India's performance post-COVID with the BRICS countries and emerging market economies and also the advanced countries. No one is predicting that we are even going to get back to 1920 GDP levels in 21-22. No one in their right mind is doing that, because suppose we contract by 9.5% this year, suppose. That means we have to grow at least 9.5% next year or 10% in order to get back to 1920 level. And there has never been in our history that we've achieved 9.5 to 10%. So, look, I mean, I'm just giving you simple arithmetic that most people will understand. I've been saying from the beginning that the best case scenario, we are going to begin to get to 1920 level in the best case scenario in the financial year 22-23. Let's wait to see. Because unfortunately, what we need to do now in order to get there, we are not doing, including the fiscal package today. So let me stop there.
Mr. Mon Guruswamy, the RBI has very carefully said this is a technical recession. What is a technical recession, and how is it different from any other kind of recession? Is there any other kind?
There is no recession, just one recession. There is a recession. Technically, 2 quarters successively you decline, then you're in technical recession. It doesn't mean anything. It's a recession. It's not an Iyengar recession or Namboodir recession. It's a recession, period. And we've been in a growth recession now for almost 9 quarters consecutively.
Exactly.
I mean, the growth has been following every quarter. And so, you're bound to get into this area in any case. And to qualify it, calling it a technical recession, at the same time, the interesting thing is that when Michael Patra said this, the governor of the RBI says he's seeing green shoots everywhere and things are wonderful. God knows which paddy field he's been going to, but he's seeing green shoots everywhere. I don't see any. The thing is that you got to understand this economy. There are certain bellwether industries. For instance, the two-wheeler industry. The two-wheeler industry is not growing. You're not growing. It's contracted by 23.6% as opposed to October last year. So how can you say that economy is doing well? There are standard bellwether, production of steel, production of cement, and consumer goods. You use this. These are not growing. And how can you grow without investment? Where is the investment? Mrs. Sitaraman is packaging all budgetary allocations, calling them again a stimulus package. And today she came up with an astounding number that the total stimulus package is 28 lakh crores.
29
lakh crores. And saying 15% of GDP. How do these people come with such absurd numbers?
I almost fell off my chair, Mohan.
And obviously they don't know what they're saying. And they think that the whole country is a bunch of fools here, and you can tell them any lies and they'll go along with it, because people are very terrified. Generally, even economists who should know are terrified of contradicting the government anymore. And they're getting away with all kinds of nonsense. The stimulus package is still less than 2 lakh crores. The total package, the way I look at it, this is money outside the budget which you allocated for this specific purpose, is nothing. It's not even peanuts. So, I think you can keep lying your way out and think that, winning elections is all. You can win elections, I always say that Adolf Hitler also won elections. And, he won them well. So what does it mean? We're still going to take the country towards ruination. Problem with, most people in this country is that we are so close to ruination anyway. How much worse can it get? Now, as far as what automobile sales are concerned, they contracted by 8%. Tractor sales have gone up by 28%. Why have tractor sales gone up? You've given an MSP announcement, and farmers are feeling buoyant in certain parts of the country. And where did all the sales take place? They all took place in North India, in MSP states. MSP states, I qualify states which contribute 80 to 70% of their crop to is taken under MSP, which means that wheat, which is in the open market at 1,300 rupees a quintal, goes at the MSP market at 1935 a quintal. So they're all rejoicing. So they're buying tractors. And what does it mean to the common farmer? What does it mean to the farmer in the rain-fed areas? What does it mean to the agricultural laborer in the Deccan or in Bihar or the areas where there are small holdings? So India can be doing well, but Bharat is sinking. And Bharat is where people live.
So we have a question from Hiren Gokhani. This is the question. He says, in my view, the measures seem to be on the supply side measures, while the problem is on the demand side. Would you bring this to the attention of the experts and ask them about it? Let me bring in Mr. Raghunathan. Mr. Raghunathan, you put out a note saying that you were disappointed from the SME sector, but you're also in the EPFO. The government has said that if establishments hire employees, that the government will foot the bill for the PF contribution. Do you not see that as adequate?
Good evening, Faye.
Good evening.
Why I said disappointment is on two grounds. One is, as you rightly said, both the diagnosis is wrong, prescription is wrong. Why is it wrong? Suppose if the diagnosis is unemployment or creating employment, then the prescription what the government is giving is, if you re-employ the same people whom you lost in the last 6 months, or any new employment who has so far not been covered under EPFO, provided with some rider condition, that I will pay for next 2 years their EPFO contribution for both the employer and the employee side. Now let's understand, I run a company, okay? I lost couple of my employees because I couldn't afford their salary, not because I could not afford their PF contribution. PF contribution in my cost to the company is only 12%. And the employee side, it is another 12%. So just by giving me the PF contribution does not enthuse me to hire them. I did not fire them with willingness. I am eager to have them back. But the question is, where is the order? Where is the demand? Where is my use of them? That is the painful aspect of it. We would always love to have more number of people, take care of them socially and give them the social security and enjoy the benefit for both of us deriving out of it. But unfortunately, in today's context, merely giving an incentive of I will pay PF actually will not enthuse the entrepreneurs to hire more people. And the rider condition has made it amply clear not many will benefit. Not many will benefit. Let's take, for example, that there are two rider conditions. Okay, one is the employee must be less than 15,000 salary. Today, who is drawing 15,000 rupees salary? Hardly you will have anybody with it. Then the second one is minimum of 4% of the new employees of your total employee must be the new employment. 4%, which that means for 50 people, for example, 4% is 2 persons. So if I have a minimum of 2 new employees, I am eligible for this. That's another rider which makes you, go out of it. Like this, I give you, it's like, you pour the water into the tank, but then close the tap. So anyway, you will never get a water. So it is like that. And most of the schemes, unfortunately, it's only the needle piercing my veins, but without a medicine.
Let me take also the question to Professor Mehrotra right now. The question that our viewer asked about, is this a solution on the supply side when the solution should really be on the demand side. And I also want you to respond to what Mr. Raghunathan just pointed out about the fact that this solution of saying we will pay the PF if you meet this condition, meet that condition, 15,000 rupees to 4% of employees, all of this just makes for good announcements, but not really for good application.
I think I agree with the way you pose the question. But let me try and answer your first the first thing that the previous questioner was asking about demand and supply. It has been evident for 7 months now that this is, for the first time in the history of our country, a aggregate demand side crisis. In the past, we've had economic crises much weaker than this, which have been mainly supply side driven, and I won't go in there. This one is a demand one. And if you had put in place a fiscal stimulus of some significance, that would mean money going into the hands of people. What is the fiscal stimulus? You increase public expenditure and do it now. Don't promise that you will spend it, as in the case of many of the schemes announced today, and in fact in Atma Bharat Nirbhar 1, over the course of the next 4 or 5 years. You need the demand today, because all the constituents in Raghunathan's companies, the All India Manufacturers Association, which are mostly MSMEs, they are collapsing today. They are closing today. They need the demand today. What's the point of providing the demand tomorrow? And so because the government's analysis of the problem is wrong, as Raghu was rightly pointing out, and as was Mohan, their prescriptions are off. So for instance, if they had understood the need for a bigger fiscal stimulus, then we wouldn't be among the most contracting economies in the world. I want to give you some numbers. If you look at the US, the World Economic Outlook of the IMF in October, just this last month, said the world economy is going to, the world economy is going to contract by 4.4%. What are we going to contract by? 10.3%. The US is contracting 4.3%. Eurozone contracting by 8.3%. Japan by 5.3%. And none of the BRICS countries are contracting by anywhere close to what we are contracting by, according to the IMF, which is 10.3% in year 20. Why? Because the nature of our stimulus is too weak. So you may flaunt 20 lakh crores, 20 trillion rupees, 29 trillion rupees were flaunted today. You may keep flaunting till the cows come home. It's not generating the demand today, unfortunately.
Well, let me share, the inflation number that ISnt has also come out today. Retail inflation jumps to 7.61% in October, the highest in 6 years. I'm just reading this report in the Mint. It basically says, and here's the thing that really raised my eyebrows. In October, inflation on meat and fish went up 18.7%. Vegetable prices went up 22.51%. And the rise is in all major food components, not just fruit and vegetable, but all major food components. This is an article in the Mint dated 12th November 2020. Mr. Guruswamy, and I just want you to, if you would please put this in perspective for our audience who are watching at home. So you have a family of 4, 2 children, 1 person earning. We're looking at a recession right now, technical or otherwise. Food prices going up, jobs going down. What would this mean for people's households?
Actually means that, one, the supply has been affected. You also got demand being affected. So both the recessions are taking place at the same time. Because you're not producing. There are all kinds of restrictions in production. And we've had unseasonally heavy rains, which damaged your vegetable crops and your horticulture. So prices there are going up. You've got a supply side problem there. You have heavy rains, storms, the fishermen are not going to the seas. So you've got problems with fish catch. And so we're getting hit from both sides at the same time. Obviously, it underscores the need for a serious stimulus package. Now, what you're doing right now is, the patient has got pneumonia and you're saying, have some more cough mixture. Not going to work. And you have cough mixture prescriptions, even for a fracture, for a head injury. Everything is, we have one standard violet colored liquid and you have this. It's not going to work. This is kind of, it's not a lack of any intention. It's just problem of economic philosophy. People of a certain economic school believe that any stimulus, any pump priming, any resort to Keynesian economics is bad, period. So, whether it's the Chicago school or the Gujarati mindset, I don't know. But it's a combination of both. So that we will not put, always suggesting that you're putting good money for bad causes. If you believe that people have to work their way up, you got to save, then why isn't government saving? Even today, they've given an additional LTC. At a time when people are losing jobs. Government has not tightened its belt. They're continuing to live merrily as ever. And you are giving them advances to buy goods, and you're saying that this is pump priming the economy. Now, if a government employee's economy is pump priming the economy, what happens to the common people outside? Now, EPFO scheme is very good, but how many people are covered by EPFO? We have 460 million people in the working cohort. Around 400 million are daily wages. So how many are going to be covered by all these small mini announcements? None. You got to deal with the problem of 400 million people. You got to address that, and for that you need huge public investments. Build thousands of kilometers of road, thousands of kilometers of canal, lay out, big public works so that people can go to work.
Yes.
They don't want to do that.
Let me just bring in Professor Mehrotra, because I know he has to leave right now. Aman Peshawari saying, can we trace the roots of this problem to demonetization or a rushed GST? Anirudh Sabu says, could the government have given cash into the hands of those who are needy and simultaneously worked on clearing infrastructure-related permissions in order to speed up the economy? Professor, I know that you agree with almost 75% of that, both questions.
Right. The problems are deeper than the demonetization. It was the proximate cause was certainly demonetization, GST, and then mismanagement of the economy. But there is no question that there was an overhang of NPAs which this government inherited, and it also inherited a inflated fiscal deficit, and unfortunately it went into too tight a fiscal consolidation mode. So there was some problems it inherited. But the fact of the matter is that the demonetization worsened what was a pretty difficult situation. And the hurriedly implemented GST did the same. And from then onwards, there have been bad missteps one after another. So absolutely no question. What was the other question, Faye?
Could the government have transferred money into the hands of those who need it?
Absolutely.
And worked on
it could have. Absolutely. It should have done both. And even now, unfortunately, it is being penny wise and pound foolish. It is spending too little. In today's announcements, there is some additional expenditure on urban housing, low-cost housing, and some additional money, really very small amounts of money for other things. And it's simply not enough. I mean, I did a a quick calculation because the FM announced, excuse me, the FM said that additional expenditure as announced today, including capital, was 2.65 lakh crores. Now, the point is that if you look carefully, 2.1 lakh crores of this is accounted for by just 2 of the 12. What is it? The performance-linked incentive for 12 industries. Good program. I would go further than that, but 1.545 lakh crores of this 2.65 announced today is for that. And this is going to get spent over a 5-year period. Not today, point one. Point two, the next one is 65,000 crores. The rest of the money is really pittance. The rest of the money is literally 50,000 crores. It's a joke, 55,000 crores. And the other is fertilizer subsidy. We don't know to what extent there are there's a backlog in fertilizer subsidies that have not been paid to the manufacturers. Point one. Point two, how long this is going to take to spell out. So the point goes back to there is still, unfortunately, no demand stimulus, and we did need to, and we can still put in place cash transfers. And I'm glad that your questioner is actually saying that it's something that this cabinet actually consciously rejected. We know this, that they consciously rejected it in this. The newspapers are reporting it, which is tragic, because I actually wrote a long paper, very carefully designed cash transfer scheme, which would have incorporated PM Kisan, but it would have provided cash to about 60% of the country's population, the poorest. The PM Kisan people, recipients, are all owner cultivator farmers. They are not the poorest. They are not. So what are you? They are going to spend it on the fertilizer. So they're getting a fertilizer subsidy, and then they're getting this as well. Are they increasing demand? I'm not so sure. You see, this is the tragedy about the way this government thinks. If they had, I mean, all you needed to do was put in place what I was suggesting of a cash transfer. The amount would have been the same as for the PM Kisan. It would have cost only 10,000 crores per annum more, because they're going to spend about 60,000 crores in a year. And you would have begun to put money into people's hands, which they would begin to spend today, which would create demand for the MSMEs of the country. If only, alas, is all one can say.
Yes. Professor Malhotra, I know that you have to rush, so thank you for giving us time. Let me take the next question to Mohan Guruswamy, and then I'll come back to Mr. Raghunathan. So I'm just reading some of the other articles that are popping up, Mr. Guruswamy, over the last 48 hours. Festive season, two-wheelers is zipping past right now. There is a lot of demand for festive season. Jeweler confidence revives on festive demand. People are buying gold. Passenger vehicle wholesale up 14% in October. Although this article in the New Indian Express also says rural demand has been, retail demand has been muted. I beg your pardon. So there is a sort of now talk, a buzz about the festive demand in auto and for some reason in gold, but I don't see enough being written about white goods. People normally buy washing machines, refrigerators. There isn't too much there, or about anything else.
Faye,
Yes.
when you are computing growth, you compute against the previous year, same time. October 2019, October 2020. What they've done is from September, you got a jump of 6.6% in two-wheelers. That is not your growth over last year. That's the growth. September was already low. September was almost 30%. September 19. So that's gone up by 6%. But that is not growth. The whole sector is not growing. So there's a big difference in how you look at it, how you approach it. You got to be, and when you say vehicle sales have gone up, it's again compared to September. From September to October, you've gone up 6%. But that doesn't amount to the auto industry booming, doing better than last year or year before last. You're worse off than last year. The only sector in which you've got a year-over-year growth is tractors. Let's be clear about that. Even in four-wheelers, you're 8.8% below last year. 23.6% for two-wheelers, below last year for the same period in October. So that's not growth. No, it's wishful thinking. They're trying to tell people that we're actually growing now at 6% to suggest that everything is hunky-dory. It's not. Now, as Santosh Mehrotra said, when are we going to recover the lost income, lost GDP? Now, he was very charitable and he says 2022. I don't expect it to come before 2025 at the rate we're sinking. If your GDP for the year is going to go down by 14 or 15%, as even the IMF is saying 11% now, other institutions have said 13.8, Asian Development Bank has said something else. So obviously it's going to be much more than that. Then it's going to take you 2 years to come back to, if you do at 6% or 7%, to come back to that. So you suddenly won't be minus 20, minus 15, and then come to 6% GDP in 1 year. It takes time. You go to first touch 0, then 1 or 2%, then start timing out of the whole. It'll take you 2025. So if you want to cut that short, you have to do a real stimulus package. Create money and bring it. Don't shuffle around money and say, this is over the next 5 years, and say it's now. It's not going to, nothing's going to change.
Okay, so I want to actually introduce a new aspect to this conversation. The fact that Delhi and Kerala are seeing a spike in cases of COVID. Now, this is a report from the BBC that was put out 9 hours ago that says Delhi's COVID cases spike as temperatures drop and pollution rises. Now, Delhi is reporting 8,500 cases of COVID a day. This was Wednesday's number. It was the highest ever. It has never, even in the first, if we call it our first phase or the first wave, it had not reported cases this high. We're also seeing a similar sort of rise again in the number of cases come up in Kerala. Here's my question about business and the economy. If we face, God forbid, a second spike in cases, how would we deal with that? Mr. Raghunathan, you're on the ground, you're running a business. How would you deal with that? Would we need another lockdown? Would we need subdued business? How would we deal with it if we saw this Delhi spike post-festive season happen in other parts of the country? What would that mean for the economy?
This is actually the cause of concern for every entrepreneur. Let me tell you, Faye, last week, about 40% of the export orders have been put on a hold.
Okay.
40%, not one or two.
Hold by whom?
They were supposed to have been sent to European market. They have been asked to be kept on a hold because of the second lockdown in European market. Second, lot of companies which have some components which are yet to come from European market, they have not received it. For example, if a machine of mine is costing me to manufacture 5 lakhs, and if there is about 50,000 worth of a component is yet to come, I still lock up my capital. So this is seriously happening. Second, there are people who are dangerously being caught, those who we send to the sites, field activities, for installations, commissioning, testing. Most of them, about 60% of them, either they need to have self-quarantine when they return back, or they need to be safeguarded from further continuance of usages. And so what is happening is we are getting stuck with the input material. We are also getting stuck with the output material, which is not to be installed yet. So we are being choked on both the sides. This is the biggest concern which nobody has realized. Nobody is talking about it. In fact, I was always been saying, when you don't know the depth of the water, don't try and cross it. Where there is a flood, we understand. We are all drowning, we understand. And the government is trying to bring a ship to save us, and we don't know when the ship will come. We are only saying, give us a plank which we can hold and keep the nose above the water. Because otherwise, by the time you bring the ship, none of us will exist. Then there will be some few corporate companies which will be existent with another small ships, and none of them will sail anywhere, and it will lead us into chaos. Even today, we do not know what will be the status of this country with regard to COVID situation 1 month from now. We do not know. Wait and watch after the Deepavali festival. We will know the result. On one side, if you take the Tamil Nadu government today, had given a no-go signal for some processions of the BJP party here. They wanted to carry something and then they put no conditions. Now, for 100 people, 200 people, if you have restriction, if I run a company with 500 people, what kind of a fear I will have? What kind of a worry I will have? Do I have to face that? Do I have to focus that? Do I have to deal with it? I have to deal with it. End of the day, nobody is going to come. So the problem is with the government announcements. I'm happy, some announcement are making, but that announcement must be of use to us like a plank, if not like a vitamin to take us to the shore, at least a plank. Today, you see, you yourself will laugh, Faye. Today's announcement, one scheme, 18,000 crore is an additional outlay for PM Awas Yojana scheme today. The article says, the slide of the finance minister reads, saying this will help 12 lakh houses to be grounded. You tell me in a layman's term, if you say grounded means all the houses will be brought down. I don't know who writes these kind of slangs to write. So 12 lakh houses will be grounded, 18 lakhs to be completed. Expected additional jobs, 78 lakhs. My dear, with 18,000 crore if you pump in and if you can create 17,000 lakh jobs, where do you get all this figure? Does it mean you are accepting 78 lakhs jobs have been lost in the last 6 months? Are you then accepting? Or what are you accepting? What are you trying to convey? So we are getting fooled. The last week you did yourself a debate. The steel industries have said shortage of material because there is no production. Everywhere I'm seeing people suffocating, struggling. And whereas we are talking, it is only minus 8.6%. I don't know, Faye. You tell me, Faye. If I am wrong, I will be willing to correct. Last first quarter, which is April, May, June, the RBI had said it will be only minus 11% and 12%. Then somebody came and told, globally, when I compare, it is minus 24%. Now RBI is saying 8.6. Now will somebody come and tell me after 1 month that it will be 27%? I don't know whom to believe.
So let me bring in Mr. Guruswamy. Mr. Guruswamy, I'm extending the same question to you. If we find, again, I hope not, and God forbid, but we're looking at Delhi, we're looking at Kerala, we're looking at Europe, and we've been in the entire COVID circle a couple of months behind Europe, in the curve so far.
And also US.
And also US. And US is seeing a spike as well. Would our economy be able to handle another wave of COVID should it come? How should we, respond to it?
We are going to get into this next spike. We're already in the spike. The New York Times had a long report today that India is underreporting, India is concealing facts, and that they believe that right now we have over 1 million cases as opposed to the 70 lakhs declared by the government. And they are saying that the only reason why India is weathering the storm is the old age cohort is very small. The plus 65 cohort in India is 6.3%. And that is your high risk, high vulnerability cohort. There, the mortality rate in that cohort is over 20%. Europe, America, New York, all these places had over 20% cohort above 65. So when the wave hit them, they had high mortality in this segment. And it overloads hospitals. India, we don't have enough hospitals as it is to start with. So that little capacity we have is getting overloaded. In Delhi, for instance, today there are no ICU beds available anywhere. None. And they've announced it. Now, you're going to have that situation in the whole country. It's not going to only say touch Delhi and not touch Bombay. It's going to touch everybody. So there has to be some staggered quarantine. There should be more mask use encouraged. But today they had a photograph of a Diwali Mela in Ahmedabad. Thousands of people in one beautiful photograph. Nobody with masks. So there's no escape from that. There's no urgency that you want to protect yourself.
Yes.
Now, it's agreed that most 95, 98% of people will just have a common cold and maybe a little chest congestion and maybe a little temperature and come out of it. But you still lose productivity. And you're putting your senior cohorts in great risk. So we can afford to lose people. We can take that point of view. And you lose people. The old age people have to really protect themselves. The families have to be conditioned. Now I have locked myself up pretty much, from all activity. But how does a poor person who lives 8 people to a room, how do you protect that old age person in that home? Impossible. So you got to make emergency provisions for them. Open up large field hospitals. Rurally, you saw Bihar elections. Nobody's wearing masks. And people are dying there. There's no doubt that people are dying. Senior people are dying of corona-related diseases. And you pass it off. You say, hey, he's got TB anyway. So corona speeds up the TB. Corona speeds up heart ailments. So if you say that is not a problem, then it's not a problem. But at least to get your economy going, you need money. Put money into the economy. That's, people will go catch their colds and catch their coughs and come out of it after 10 days of it. But it need not halt the economy. You don't have to switch it off completely. You got to switch it on and say, take care.
Yes, in fact, in that New York Times article that Mr. Guruswamy was talking about, it has quoted Dr. Naresh Trihan, who is the cardiologist and the head at the Medanta hospital chain in New Delhi. He said, people are saying we have to learn to live with it. God knows how long it will last. He has said that people are partying like there's no tomorrow. If you do things like that, you are bound to suffer. So I think one thing is true, that as a country, we have sort of thrown caution to the wind.
Look at this picture. Beautiful picture. Very colorful. Nobody's with mask.
Yes, that photograph.
And this is the Prime Minister's hometown, his home state.
So people are not wearing masks. People are not taking precautions. So we're sort of inviting a second wave of COVID at a time where our economy perhaps could not handle it at all. Mr. Raghunathan, the question also that, the government...
Hey, one more point.
Yes, please.
We don't have a cold chain. Your vaccine might come out by February, March earliest. You don't have a cold chain. You got to be producing compressors now. You got to be producing freezers now. Small sizes, big sizes, locating them in different places. You got to have a national logistics office. You got your trucks, which are going to carry the vaccine, have to be refrigerated. And there are different kinds of vaccines. The Pfizer vaccine needs temperatures of minus 70 degrees. The Oxford vaccine needs 30 degrees. But Oxford vaccine is only 53% effective. The Pfizer vaccine is 93% effective. The Russian vaccine also, which is effective, needs minus 85 cold chain. We don't have those freezers. You might get those vaccines and have it, in a few places in Bombay, Delhi also, where you might have such freezers available and give it there. But you need to have a national logistics program for the cold chain. Build the cold chain now. That will increase your GDP also, increase jobs. We don't produce any compressors in this country. You could get your compressors.
Business idea.
Yeah.
Business idea, cold chaining.
No, we don't know. No, when you put your money and then if you don't get the business, what happens? I can tell you, thousands of people in Tirupur went ahead in making the mask and the whatever they wear, and today they are all lost heavily.
Why?
Because there is suddenly the government banned them from export. So they were manufacturing here. Then the consumption here went to reduce because the government wanted to show that there is a less number of cases. So the consumption here then went down. Then the government opened again the gate for export. So we don't, the reference goalpost is changing. No, where do you play the game? So that's fine. There is a market potential. There are that way plenty of market potential. But the question is, this is not a time for us to play. We have to wait. We really don't know what is the right thing to do now. And I have been always saying, this is a time just to pass with making short-term decisions to survive, not long-term visionary statements. And the short-term statements in the entire 29.5 lakh crores, I don't see any short-term statements. In today's announcement, tell me, 5-year announcement on PLI. That is not what I wanted. I wanted to know how will I cope up for the next 6 months. My first 6 months in this year is a loss, heavy loss. I am carrying on with a bad shoulder, and I am expecting to become a NPA the moment the bar is lifted. And 30 to 35% is the NPA likely to come. I am not Yes Bank, where SBI will come and bail me out. I am a small company. If I put my shutter down, they will also pull my collar out. The bank will come after my blood. It is not easy. So where is the solution for me? You tell me where is the solution. I don't see any solution. Neither there is a discussion, nor there is a redressal. Today we are simply extending. The only scheme so far which the government has given to the MSME is the ECLGS scheme.
Right.
That scheme.
So actually, this is the question that we should ask, and it's coming on Twitter from Brinston Cavallo, who says, how do we know if these relief packages are actually being utilized by anyone on the ground? Is there any way to track the use or the benefit of relief packages on the ground? Mr. Guruswamy, you've been in government.
There's no need to track anything because there's nothing happening. There's nothing to track. If you spend money, then you can track it. You're talking of spending a package of 2 lakh crores, approximately.
1.5 lakhs.
Or a GDP of 230 lakh crores. It's just going to be a drop in the sand. Disappear. There's nothing. So there's nothing to track because they're not spending anything. You should be asking, why aren't you spending? Why aren't people working? If you see in rural areas, there are a lot of youth in villages now. Previously, if you went to any village in Telangana or the neighboring states, you didn't see young people in the villages. They all had gone to work in distant places, in Surat, in Nasik, in Jamnagar, and various places. That traffic is gone now. They're all back in the villages. So a lot of young people sitting there idle, doing nothing. There's no additional Narega funds. There are no village schemes, no rural construction scheme, nothing. It's totally inert, collapsed government.
Faye, I want to add up to this, Faye.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Since you asked this question, let me share with you my own experience. I have a 60 lakhs loan with a bank, and I got this ECLGS scheme of 20% of my outstanding. So I got about 11 lakhs money given to me in the month of July. When they gave me that 11 lakhs, they took away 2 months installment EMI themselves from the bank. And my each installment was 1.7 lakhs. So 3.4 lakhs they took away. Then I have to pay GST for the 4 months. Then I have to pay PF and ESI. Then I have to pay salary. Then I have to pay bonus. I have to pay the Diwali advances to my staff. And the last month itself, I had zero balance in my bank. Number one. Now I am under moratorium. Every month I am paying close to about 11,000 rupees as an interest. 1 year moratorium. After that, I have to do the repayment. How will I repay? I have not used that money for a good purpose. I have not used it for making profit. If I borrow money, I must put it into the business where I can make profit. Now I have not made profit. I have made only losses. You tell me the entire 1.5 lakhs crore which has been called as a dispersal is going to come back around you. At least 70% will boomerang on you after 1 year for non-repayment. It's going to throw you back. So we are just doing something for the sake of doing, for the sake of calling it like a big name. Let me explain to you this, the interest waiver scheme. which went ahead, and then a big scheme was announced during the moratorium period. Simple interest or compound interest will be repaid back to you. Do you know how much I got? I paid an interest for the 6 months close to about 4.5 lakhs. The government gave me back 6,000 rupees. You call that 6,000 is what I was begging for, or fighting for, or arguing for, or waiting for? Please, where are we at? You have made entrepreneurs a beggars in this country.
Yes,
You
in
have
fact,
made entrepreneurs a beggars.
there was one person on Twitter who put out a note saying those people who started businesses, startups 5 years ago, have put their entire life savings into it. They've not taken market value salaries. They've not been taking salaries at all. And now as their businesses are winding up, they are the uncounted unemployed. The entrepreneurs who now have wound up businesses. The other thing I want to point out to the audience is when you go out in any of our cities, just keep an eye out for spaces, commercial spaces, which used to be restaurants or Burger Kings or, things like that. Commercial spaces, which now has a to let, for rent notice on it because it is now empty. These were all businesses that are now gone, which means the jobs that were attached to those restaurants and those businesses are also now gone. Mr. Goswami, I just want to point out in today's announcements, there was an outlay for the PM Garib Kalyan Rozgar Yojana, which was an additional outlay of 10,000 crore rupees provided for this Yojana. And funds can be used for Manrega and for the Gram Sadak Yojana to help accelerate the rural economy. Also, the question about the migrant workers who went back to their villages, who we understand some are coming back to the cities now. If this is the state of employment and economy, where will they find work? In the village or in the cities when they come back?
In the cities, they will compete for fewer jobs. There's nothing in the village, zero. So you go and say, I'll take my chance outside. And you'll struggle around for 6-8 months before you find a job for which you're going to get paid less, because this is all unorganized sector. Government might put all kinds of minimum wages, but the market will pay you what they think is dictated by demand and supply. Now, that is one aspect of it. The second aspect is that 10,000 crores in this huge economy, $3 trillion economy, is nothing. You got to think big. You got to have a bigger view of what the problem is. Imagine 200 million people, daily wages without jobs. They need jobs. Now, and another sector which we're missing out is the sector which deals with face-to-face economy. That's, the waiter in a restaurant, like you said, or the pakoda wala who's selling you pakoda on the street. Prime Minister should take note of that. They've all disappeared. The ironing man, the pressman, the dhobi, all these jobs have gone. The cobbler, there's no cobbler on the street. Previously, used to have cobblers in every second street corner. Cobblers have gone. The guy outside who'd come and pick up your clothes and iron them outside into your colony, he's gone. Dry cleaners are vanishing. The small restaurants, this is where the maximum employment was. The guy, the vendor who's selling snacks and selling fried gram or whatever, they've all completely disappeared.
Yes.
We used to have a guy who's come in the handcart frying jalebis outside our homes. He's disappeared. Nobody goes out to buy jalebis. So these are the jobs you've really got to recover. The Prime Minister's pakoda economy must now come back into reality. How do you get that back? For that, you need confidence, people to be spending money, people to be confident of going out. You basically say, put on your mask and go out. Don't have curfews. And don't give 4 hours notice and say, shut down. It's not going to work in India. Because, we have a density of population problem. People will be cheek by jowl at all times. You suddenly can't say, you cannot be cheek by jowl. So, I think they need to take a serious assessment of what the problem is, what this country is, take all that into account. There are no Western solutions here. There's no point looking at what England did and what Russia did or America did. We have a unique set of problems.
Yes.
We have a layered economy, two clear, distinct economies. You got to deal with them. One economy has to rescue the other one. People like us, people who live in towns, people who have fixed incomes, are never going to get affected. We'll come out looking good at the end of the day. India's billionaires have done especially well. Their wealth has increased by 73% in the last 1 year, in the corona times. It's the poor people who are going to suffer in this country.
Yes.
Problem with the poor people is they don't know when they're suffering and when they're not suffering.
Faye, in my opinion, 70% of the entrepreneurs in this country are wearing masks. I am not talking about the mask from COVID. We are all wearing a mask of smile. Inside we are crying, weeping, blood shedding. So we are the only sincere people with mask. We are not infected by COVID. We are infected by several other problems. So if at all you want to give a credit to some people who are wearing masks, please give it that at least to the entrepreneurs.
All right, as an entrepreneur myself, I can vouch for the fact that it has been a maddeningly difficult few months. It is extremely stressful, and one keeps asking yourself, why did I do this? Because now you have the responsibility of other people on you as well, and you need to make sure that everybody is looked after. We're going to bring it to a close. We're at 9 p.m. Gentlemen, thank you for spending time with us and answering our questions. We do hope and that these voices reach those making decisions, that we see more of a war room type of response to what is happening in the economy. My only appeal to the people who are watching right now is to read about the economy. It is, in fact, the part of policy that comes directly into your house. And there is this sort of understanding that it's complicated and none of us understand it, but we have to pay attention to what's happening in economics, because it affects our lives, it affects what we eat, it affects what we buy, it affects whether we work or not, and whether we're able to pay school fees at the beginning of every month. So spend more time reading about the economy, because it affects your life absolutely directly. Thank you for watching. I wish you all a very, very happy Diwali, to my guests as well. I do hope that with Diwali, we have the advent of a more prosperous year, a happier year, a year with more peace, and where families are secured, you have good health and you have prosperity. Enjoy your weekend, and we will see you back here on Monday. Thanks for watching.